You said it before the break that you felt like President Barack Obama was a conservative.
So I wrote an article a little over a year ago.
Okay.
It was a Washington Post Outlook cover story. I will Slack it to someone, and if you guys want to tweet it out, I will shamelessly plug my own article. It was November 2019. I wrote it, and the title of the article was "Barack Obama Conservative." I believe if you look at now, I understand that not everybody agrees with this. This is a debatable. I don't think it's debatable that he was a centrist, but I think he was a conservative in the sense of, if you look at his speeches, his rhetoric, the way he approached legislation, his circumspection, his caution, his willingness to take a half a loaf, his image as the sort of the Black Cary Grant, the consummate, gender normative traditional father figure and husband. You add a bunch of those things up together. I hope people will read my piece. I defined him as a conservative, not a Ted Cruz or a Clarence Thomas, not one of these ideologues, obviously, but someone who believed in governing. He wasn't anti-government, but he believed, the way I see Obama, he did in most situations just enough, what he thought was just enough to address whatever the issue was, and not sort of a penny more than just enough.
You know, it's interesting. I guess for me, and maybe I'm looking at it through the lens of race, when I think about the massive settlement he did for Black farmers that have been in limbo for years, I think about appointing a historic amount of Black judges. No one else did that before him. I think about I just some of those things. Policy wise, I see it being really far from conservative. I see what you mean as far as the speeches, and I've always said that Obama did do a certain kind of dance, but I think he did that because he had to. I never believed that he was against same-sex marriage. I think he did it because he had to. I think he was playing a game. But when I think of being the first sitting president to visit a federal prison, policy-wise, I mean, there's some things I didn't like, but policy-wise, as far as a president of these United States, I would say that he was probably president, not in the House, president. I would say that he is really up there in those top 3 ranking progressive presidents. That's just what I would think. That's for me.
Real quick, not to have the debate now, Clay, I just texted you my article. If you guys want to tweet it out, I will shamelessly take the clicks and invite people to disagree with me on Twitter. But hear me out.
One question, then I'll go to Reese. But then for you, who was the progressive president?
I mean, in my lifetime, Jimmy Carter was a progressive. He was an evangelical Christian, but he was from that progressive school of evangelicals who believed that progressive values were. Say that again.
Do you mean his speeches? I mean, like policy.
I mean everything. I mean what he wanted to do policy-wise. He didn't accomplish anything.
Right.
At one term, he was not a guy. Carter was, and I'm not a big student of Carter, but he was not as successful as he might have been. He only had the one term. He left unpopular. But in terms of someone who was a progressive in my lifetime, I would say Carter. There were Republicans in history who considered themselves progressive, like Teddy Roosevelt. We could spend an hour talking about this, so I won't belabor it. I'll simply say this. And again, I understand that not everybody sees it this way. I defined Obama as a conservative, but even if you don't define him that way, his policies, if you look, would have been very in line with the moderate Rockefeller Republicans of the middle of the last century. Ford, Eisenhower, Eisenhower did the federal highway system. Nelson Rockefeller, who was vice president and governor of New York, the first president Bush. Not everyone agrees with that, but
I just, when I think of some of the really important policies, I think about him ending mandatory minimum sentencing. I think his criminal justice reform was really historic. I struggle with it. I don't know. What do you think, Reese? What do you think? Oh, go ahead.
I I get David's point. I don't agree ideologically that he was conservative, but I don't think that the crux of your argument is that he was ideologically conservative. The way that I take it is that, yes, I do agree. Obama was a very much pull yourself up by your bootstraps rhetoric type of person. He wasn't as much about talking about institutionalized racism and systemic racism, the way that, for instance, VP Kamala Harris does very consistently. And he's, family man. I think that his approach in terms of governance was conservative, not ideologically, but in terms of being no drama Obama, in terms of not being brass knuckles and things like that. So I think that there's a lot of validity to the non-ideological argument of him being conservative. I think if you talk about conservative ideologically, that's a whole different argument, because these folks out there, they on some whole other stuff. But I do think that he was a very traditional kind of family guy. He definitely was a non-threatening Black man, kind of we can all look up to, pre-Cosby being Cosby, in that vein. So I do see that point. And there are areas where he did, again, that conservative part, bipartisan. He did a lot of both sidesism, let's all come together, a lot of unity talking. So I see that point, and that was some of my frustration with President Obama. So I can completely concede that. But in terms of policy and what he pushed for, I definitely side more with you, Clay. I don't think that he was necessarily super progressive in the way that these litmus tests are today in 2020 litmus tests. But at the time, he pushed the envelope forward in healthcare, which was modeled after Mitt Romney's healthcare in Massachusetts. So to your point, that's a point in your score. But other areas, he did push the envelope forward, but he did not push forward the idea of racial justice and systemic racism and understanding. I don't think he did a lot to push that forward as a society. And that's why people kind of said the whole post-racial and all that BS stuff. And he kind of let that fly a little bit. So, I think you can make an argument both ways.
Clay, can I just make one more point on that point? Okay, and Reese made my point better than I could make it, which Obama was about that bootstrap rhetoric. He was about, I want to hold white people accountable, but I want to hold Black people accountable too.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify a couple of things in case people don't read my piece. One, when I say he's a conservative, I'm not saying that as a criticism. I think it's a feature, not a bug. That's something we can disagree about too. Number two, I wrote an article back when I was with The Root where I said, Barack Obama, this is to Reese's point, Barack Obama and Mitt Romney are the same guy. And yes, Mitt Romney flip-flopped on universal health care, but I challenge people to tell me how different they were in retrospect. They even could have worn each other's suits, had the nice salt and pepper gray hair, same 42 long, same mellow speaking style. These guys were much more similar than they were portrayed at the time. Again, I don't think that's a bad thing. Where I think Obama's conservative, and again, I think, Reese, you were hitting at this, go back and read his second inaugural address. A Republican could have given that speech. Not a movement conservative like a Cruz or a Barry Goldwater, or certainly Donald Trump's not even a conservative. Donald Trump is in a category by himself. What Obama saw and where Obama was like all his predecessors, and where President Trump was a departure from all 44 who came before him, was that Obama understood that a president of the United States is not an owner, he's a caretaker. He caretook, just like George Washington would have, and then he moved on. Donald Trump was the break from that, and Obama wanted to govern in line with his predecessors. Obama is not in the fraternity with Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela. He's in the fraternity with Harry Truman, FDR, JFK, George Washington. That's the fraternity he's in. And that was the project of the first Black president, in my view.
Yeah, but wouldn't y'all say, as far as him not addressing race the way we would have liked him to and all that kind of, but I never forgot, I interviewed Greg Palast, the great voting rights advocate. And he said when he talked with Obama about voting and voter suppression, on the phone, Obama would just lay it out. Like he knew every bit of it, every piece of it, but he wouldn't say those things in a speech. And I just always felt like Obama was playing the game. Yeah. I felt like he knows these things, but he knew that listen, if y'all want me to be here, I can't address race outwardly in this way. I might do it in a policy. I'll bring down black unemployment. I'll bring down black poverty for the first time since 1968. I'll do all these things, but I can't say it outwardly. It's not going to fly. It's not going to work. I'm not going to get reelected. So I felt like, in many ways, as far as old jobs I used to have in corporate America, I was playing the game, and I felt like part of the reason why Hillary Clinton lost is because she didn't know how to play the game as it related to how folks feel about women. I felt like she didn't understand that dance.
Yeah, I think that's right.
We as black folks, we get that dance. Now, many of us don't have to do it anymore, but I feel like President Obama is going to pave the way for a president who can speak more, Kamala Harris, who can speak more about race. But I think he knew, but I think he was playing the game because that was the way to win. And for that, I respect him because I wanted to win. And we had 2 terms. Go ahead, David.
I don't disagree with you, Clay, at all. Any politics has an element of game playing, and Obama was the best retail politician of his time and our time. But Reese hit it. He was a bootstrapper. Remember, in his first year as president, he was going to give that televised speech to the nation's school kids, and Republicans raised hell. Oh, he's going to indoctrinate them with socialism, blah, 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 blah. Go back and read that speech. The speech is basically, kids, you can't be a rapper, you can't be a ball player, so do your homework and listen to your parents. That's the speech. That's the speech.
I hear you.
That was Obama.
I hear you. But I want to add this too. I think part of the reason why Obama did play it safe when it came to his speeches and his delivery, and I do not like the Booker T. Washington pull yourself up thing, but I also think, and maybe I'm going too deep about it, I think it was a protection of his family, his wife, his daughters, his mother-in-law. They were out for Miss Michelle Obama. They were out for her. They pulled her paper from Princeton, 25 some years ago. So I think he said, you know what? I do know, but I'm going to play it safe in a certain kind of way because I have a black family that's in the White House that I must protect. So that was a way that I interpret. I could be totally wrong. Maybe he didn't think all of that. But I just remember the attacks. Remember the terrorist fist bump? I mean, it was we forget how they were bringing monkeys, a stuffed animal monkey with the noose to rally.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this was insanity, and there wasn't social media back then. There weren't trending hashtags back then. It wasn't as easy to let your voice be heard. So I think in many ways it could have been protection. But I get the critiques of him. I get it. But for me, I would argue he was one of our most progressive presidents, and I know he wasn't rooted in white supremacy like some of the other ones who get a lot of praise.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, that could just be that's the way that it was. So I just want to add that point to it as well too.